Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS strategy video for the 2021 Safeway Open. Now, what do I cover in these videos? Well, I like to grab what we learned from the course fit video on Monday, along with the stat fit video we did on Tuesday, include the bucket system, include time pairings. Also, I'm including scoring stats into this strategy video. And I really haven't added that before. A grand vision of mine for this channel is to provide scoring stats for you guys. And I would love to do it basically the same way that I do recent form, the same way I do the bucket system. I want to look at the last 7 weeks. I also want to look at the last year, provide that information for you guys. And eventually, once I get this database together, I will have that information and we can do a deep dive. I just envision better results with that type of analytics. But until we get there, I just have this. So I've included scoring system or scoring stats, which I hope you guys enjoy. I think it's gonna be a great video. So I will have timestamps in the description. You can get to any part of the video you want. I will have that scoring piece down there, as well as the rest of it. So find whatever you're interested in, whatever you like, skip right to it. Before we get into the spreadsheet, one last thing. I want to remind you guys that Chad Eckert from the Fantasy Golf Pod and myself, we're going to put together a spreadsheet for the US Open. I believe it's free. Him and I are getting together tomorrow to talk about it. I'm sure it's going to be. But keep your eyes open on the Twitter world for that. We'll have more information, and it should be available hopefully by this weekend. We'll see. Like I said, stay tuned. Okay, let's go ahead, get into the spreadsheet. I have the bucket system up right away. What the bucket system is, for you guys that haven't been here before, basically it's tracking last year's performance as well as last week's performance, and assigning a ranked number to a golfer based off of their performance. So I have 6 ranges: 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 plus, and did not play. And I have rankings over here determining which one of those ranges are more important than the other. Then I also have numbers over here that indicate how often it has happened inside the top 10 over, obviously, these years you see up here. And then a percentage of that breakdown within that range, within these numbers. So you can see here, the last year bucket 1 are golfers who did not play the year before. It's at a mark of 43%. So 43% of golfers, 43% of the top 5 over the last 6 years are golfers who did not play. So what that looks like on the spreadsheet, I should look here. This is the number. These are the numbers I really grab for the bucket system. They can be different from the last year 5, but the last year 1 is the exact same for the top 10 bucket and the top 5 bucket. So last year bucket 1s, what that'll look like on the DK page, basically you have a 1 next to their name, and I've also color coded it to make it easy. Also, this dark green are last year 1s. So Shane Lowry has not played or did not play this tournament last year. I can also come over here and confirm, the last year column is empty for him. And you guys can also, go and look at last year's tournament. You're not going to find Shane Lowry in it. Anyways, so I assign the ranked number that the golfers fall under, whatever their finishing position was last year. If it finished in any of these ranges, this is the number I provide them. So basically what we're looking at here, golfers who did not play last year have a slight advantage, and almost by 3 times to finish inside the top 10. Now that doesn't apply to every golfer who did not play. Obviously we've got some scrubs at the bottom of the salary leaderboard, but just if you have a good play, or if you have a good feeling on a player and you see it also he has a last year bucket 1, perfect. Should provide a little bit more confidence in playing him. That's all these numbers really provide. The last little bit I want to talk about, golfers, I should say this. when determining how many we should play from each bucket, I like to do the min-max model, I guess. Find the least amount of times it's happened in a year and then the most amount of times, and I can build lineups that way. I really like to go up to the top 5 leaderboard to see what my actual min is. You know, if we saw a bunch of zeros in here, I would say it's kind of a volatile number or a volatile bucket. But since we see 2 as our minimum, I'm going to play at least 2 last year ones in all of my lineups. And then the rest of the buckets, to me, I mean, they're so close to each other. You got 11, 9, 8, times that this has happened. You can see the percentages next to it. Really, the only bucket I almost want to avoid is the last year 6s. But Kevin Tway was a last year 6. And he won this tournament in 2019. So if I went to the 2019 spreadsheet, sort this way, he was a last year 6. And therefore, last year 6s are on the table. You can play a last year 6. But when you look at this leaderboard, look how many 1s, how many 2s, how many 3s are up there as opposed to 6s. I guess you can see 2s and 3s kind of match the 6s that are up there, but I do like to look inside the top 10. So you see 2 3s, 1 4, 1 5, 1 6, but a lot of 1s, basically. So yeah, it's just a way to kind of give you a little bit of an advantage, give you more confidence in playing a player or not, or a golfer, I should say. But yeah, I'm not going to go on any more than that. We're not looking at last week because there was no tournament really last week for any of these golfers. It was the Tour Championship that was around, but there's no point. And this tournament always starts the season, basically. Last year was the only time it didn't. So we don't have bucket combinations either. And a bucket combination obviously would be the last year bucket to go along with the last week bucket. Since it's not available, we're not going to do that bucket combination analysis. What we're going to do is go right down to basically a salary breakdown. I have captured all of the top 10 salaries or golfers who had salaries inside the top 10. And what I like to do is just kind of try to find a common salary that does well. I also like to see how often the top salary golfers, how well they did, and if any of them didn't perform up to their price point. For the most part, it looks like your top price guy, or at least one of them, finished inside the top 5, which is a good number. Obviously, it's a good finishing position. You want your golfers who are 10K and above to be up here. One thing that I would add with the pricing is, I like to think of anyone that's priced 11K or above needs to finish 3rd or better. We don't see that here in 2020. And in fact, I don't believe that guy was a part of the optimal lineup. Yeah, it was JT. He was not a part of the optimal lineup. I mean, the optimal lineup didn't even have left $3,400 on the table. The winning lineup for the $1 GPP didn't even have Justin Thomas in it either. Had Cam Champ, Adam Hadwin, Charles Howell III, Bryson DeChambeau, Francesco, and Adam Long. So not really the greatest lineup. Only 3 golfers inside the top 10, which isn't terrible. Obviously, he won it or she won it. But yeah, it did not include the 11.6K golfer. In 2019, I don't actually have the winning lineup, but 11.3 was not used for the optimal lineup. So, your high price guys, when we see this also, seeing that they didn't finish first place kind of does a little something. Like you have to think about, really, say 2020, 2019. Do we actually have 2018? Did I not? Oh, I didn't even see that. I don't have a DK page for this for whatever reason. Okay, so in 2018, sure, one of the 11K golfers was in the optimal lineup, and it was exactly $50,000. So keep that in mind. Definitely something interesting to look at. I then add kind of, these are all salaries from 12K down to 6K, and a count of how many times that salary finished inside the top 5, how many times it finished inside the top 10. I don't really necessarily look at a particular salary. So like 7,500, what I like to look at is a range. So we have 75, 79, 74, 71, 7. So we have a bunch of golfers inside the 7K range, the 7 to 8K range, that is. But then again, or not again, but we have a lot of golfers also inside the 6K range. So this is kind of a week where doing that stars and scrubs approach actually, it might be more beneficial than any other week to see, how many 7K and 6K golfers. If we were to see more 11 and 10K golfers up here, it would be kind of concerning in a way. Like, it almost would say we want to play, like that stars and scrubs approach also. I guess it really depends on what their finishing position is, right? That's the second piece of this. When we look at all of this and we compare it to here, we want to see how many times a particular salary or price point has finished inside top 5, top 10. So I guess that's kind of the other layer to all of it. One last piece with the salary breakdown. I like to see what the average salary is, because this is a way to determine if you really need to use all 50,000 of your salary. Remember, on DraftKings, the average remaining salary is 83.33, or 8,333. When this average salary is lower, it is a prime time or a prime reason to leave money on the table for your optimal lineup. I think this is a tournament, because it is usually the beginning of the year and we see a lot of rookies entering this tournament year in and year out. That's probably why we see the price being so low, because a lot of the rookies that do come out on tour are pretty hungry and play pretty decently. Along with that, a lot of our top guys don't do well. If we were to look at all of the 10K and above golfers for each year, we're going to see more disappointment than we're going to see success. So it's definitely something to take into account. The minimum salary we've seen in the top 10 is 6,400. The maximum is 11,600. I believe our top guy this week is 10,800. So we don't have to worry about 10,600. I think DraftKings is getting a little bit smarter with their pricing. So I don't think we really have to worry about. It really doesn't feel like we have to worry about salary construction. In all honesty, your top. Wow, why can I not think of the word? I guess I'll just call it your top rated salary range is 7K to 8K. I think that comes with no surprise. 38% of the top 10 golfers fell inside that 7 to 8K range. Our next one would actually be below 7K. This would be actually a prime time to grab golfers who are last year bucket ones within that salary. So definitely take that into account. But yeah, you can see the rest of the ranges here and the outcome of top 10s for them. Really don't worry about the winners down here. It's just a nice little piece to add. It is kind of interesting that the biggest or the most expensive salary to win this tournament was $9,000. The 7,400 won it also. I would say I don't think there's really much to worry about. I should say this. The guys who are the favorites might be a good time to fade them, because your favorites probably lie somewhere in the 7 to 8K range. But we'll get to that right now. So I have the 2021 DK page up. I'm going to go ahead and put a filter on this, and then we're going to go by salary here. When we look at these top guys, we see a bunch of last year sixes. Not a bunch, a few. Which is really interesting. A lot of these players I actually like, but I'm not playing any shares of Siwoo Kim. And for this week, I don't have a sweet spot number. Just getting this video out, I'm getting it out a little later than I intended to. I wanted to. I fell into some kind of issues that I had to resolve before actually working on this video. It is what it is. And I also added this scoring piece that I will be providing a little bit later. But to go along with the so yeah, no sweet spot number, but I do have the last year buckets. We can see a bunch of last year ones right at the top. And I think these golfers are not terrible last year ones to play. I really like Shane Lowry. He was the thumbnail of my StatFit video. I think he's in a good position, and he's actually playing with these three golfers, Phil Mickelson and Brendan Steele. I think a lot of people will be on Brendan. So if you have an ownership angle, that's also another good thing to look at. I don't provide that information in my videos, but here you go. Out of these three golfers, I think this is your marquee lineup. I think these guys are actually going to feed off each other, and when we get into the scoring, you're going to see that. But yeah, I think one or two of these golfers are going to do well. I really like Phil. I also really like Shane. I don't mind Brendan Steele, but I need to find a fade up here, and I think it probably will be Brendan. I'm not really going to talk about each price. I just wanted to show you what the buckets look like up here. We have a lot of sixes this week, or at this tournament. Not so much here at the bottom. So I think this is where you can find maybe a last year one that works out pretty decent. I guess if we look at our 2020 DK, how many last year ones finished up here that were low priced? So basically our two high price guys, 6,400, 69, 64, and then 94. So it's kind of a mix, 3 and 3 basically. How about 2019? Snedeker at 11.3, Sungjae at 7, JB at 7.9, Dan. So this is a little bit all over the place. But the one thing that was constant were golfers over 10K who were last year ones. And obviously our only guy over 10K who was a last year one is Shane Lowry. So I do like it. I do like Shane Lowry as a play. Let's go ahead and get into tee times. I'm just going to sort by the game. And what I have numbered here, actually, how about this? Let's go back to this. I'm going to go ahead and hide all the way up to here. That way we can bring in the new scoring pieces of information. So what we're going to do, I have a note up here. I know it's probably going to be difficult for you guys to see, but the note that's in the scoring average bucket is lowest average score for golfers in this field is 70.27. The highest is 74.87. The field average is 71.26, and the tour average is 71.099. So based off of those last two numbers, you can kind of tell this is probably a little bit weaker of a field. I mean, it's no surprise it is, but it's still a pretty exciting field nonetheless. When we go ahead and sort this by your top scoring average down, again, keep in mind your lowest scoring average is Shane Lowry's 70.27. The average is 71.26. This is a par 72 golf course. Having this scoring average low, I mean, part of these numbers also have baked in, like scoring average for, it's just your general scoring average. If some of these golfers only play par 70s and par 71s, like their scoring average is going to be good. But I also have included rounds under 70. And again, this also would include your par 70s. But it's not going to be a terrible thing to look at. I also have their lowest round score with them as well. And then the differential between the lowest round and the scoring average. So basically, the higher this number, the more volatile the golfer is. The lower the number, the more consistent that golfer is. Basically, it would be smart to grab golfers that have a low scoring range or average along with a small differential number. I didn't know what to color code this as, so seeing red might scare some of you guys. I think it only should scare you if we go down here and the scoring average is pretty high, like Dominic Bizzelli, 72.28, and the differential is 5.28. His lowest round last year was a 67. I'm not feeling comfortable playing him, but then he also has a 26% clip of scoring under 70. So it's weird. Obviously he has a bunch of rounds that he scores under 70, but then he must have some blow up holes or some blow up rounds where he's shooting, 75 and above in order to have the 72.28, range scoring average. I guess the other thing that this could be is he only plays par 72s, or he's only played par 72s. This number isn't terrible, but it's also not below, 72. So keep that in mind. I do want to look at golfers. I'm more interested in grabbing golfers who have a low scoring average as well as a low 2020. Or I should say their low round of 2020. I want that to be low as well. I want this differential to be as high as possible. Like Denny McCarthy has the opportunity, like the possibility of going really low. And that's something I would be looking for in this. So I guess your notable golfers, Shane Lowry, like quite a bit. A lot of people like Harold Varner III. I don't blame them. Pretty good differential. Brennan Steele and Bud Cauley, I like them as well. I'm just not gonna play a lot of in each of them. It could come back and hurt me, sure. But I'm just gonna live with it. Mark Hubbard would be the next favorite play of mine. I mean, 6.41 at a 70.41 scoring average. That's remarkable. 48% of his rounds of golf are under 70. That's insane. That's a really good number. One other thing I want to admit, this percentage is the conversion of, so the PGA gives you rounds under 70 and then events. Now, events could range anywhere from 2 rounds to 4 rounds. I'm going off the basis that each event equals 4 rounds. So if that's not the case for a lot of these golfers, like their percentages would be better. So this would be the absolute worst their numbers could be. I believe that's the correct logic. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But either way, looking at scoring average, I'm looking at this also kind of combining, how many rounds under 70 they have, what their differential is, even the amount of rounds under 70 that they have. Like, I'm looking at all of this information and using it to my advantage this week. So you can see a lot of these golfers have some really good numbers up here. I used these to determine my favorite groups also. So that's why I wanted to come to the scoring average before we went to the tee time pairings. But yeah, you can see a lot of these golfers up here, basically choose your poison, whoever you want to go with. Someone like Jordan Spieth, not as good, right? So 20 rounds under 70, not very good. His differential, not very good, 5.86. His lowest round is 65. Now, he's a grinder, and he's going to continue to grind. I think the cut's going to be around -1. I think he's going to make the cut. I don't think you have an issue with him making the cut. I just don't think he's going to win you a tournament. And at $9,800, that's not where we want to be. Now, Pat Perez, who's just above him, he has a better scoring average, better differential, a lower round, and more times under 70 than Jordan Spieth. That would be a better play, in my opinion, than Jordan Spieth. Pat Perez. If there was a head-to-head, I would bet it. Phil Mickelson is down here. So his scoring average, 71.01. Now, this is where you kind of, obviously, you play into the risk. You could obviously do the same thing with Jordan Spieth, but Mickelson has such a high differential. His lowest round was 63. 29.69% of rounds under 70 is not very good. That's exactly what we saw with Spieth. I guess what I like to see, I don't think he puts 4 rounds together that are really good, but he has the potential to score really low. And that's kind of where I was getting at with the kind of this boomer bust mentality that you need to have when creating lineups, or at least anchoring your team with. Phil Mickelson is definitely more of a boom bust guy. If we were to look, I mean, Shane Lowry is in the group that he's playing in. So is Brennan Steele. Both of them have better scoring averages. Both of them have better percentages of rounds under 70. They're just better plays in my opinion. But Phil might be actually the guy who no one plays at that price and might come around and play well. Seamus Power, that's kind of interesting. Well, I guess we'll go through each column. Siwoo Kim is down here. That should come to no surprise. That differential is really high. His lowest round is pretty good. Rounds under 70, that is actually a high number, and 33.33% of rounds under 70 is high as well. Here, the same argument I made for Phil Mickelson could be made for Siwoo Kim. You just have to choose one, and I'm gonna choose Phil. I would choose Phil over Siwoo. It's just we all know he's capable of withdrawing at any moment in time. I'm not there. I'm not going with Siwoo Kim. I don't really care for this price. When we come down here and we see someone like Robbie Shelton with a 9.36 for his differential, obviously shot a 62 somewhere down the road. The rest of his numbers don't look good. This would be good for a showdown slate guy. Like, he has the possibility of shooting low one of the days. And I think you got to take that into account. Okay. Ooh. Kevin Chappell. His 59 at the Greenbrier last year. It's basically a full year from this tournament where this happened. That differential is very high. He's only done this once. He could have all of his other rounds in the 60, the high 60s with one there. 28%. Like, if this number was bigger, I would like it. But the fact of the matter is, not very good. He can get hot. Another showdown slate guy. That's what I would look at that. And then we're kind of coming down into the scrubs. But, there would be plays down here you could look at, just by looking at the percentage of rounds under 70. Anyways, I can go ahead and look at this really quickly. So Eric Van Rooyen does not have, the PGA did not provide me with stats of his scoring average. So obviously then I didn't have a differential, but his lowest round is 62. He's had 10 rounds under 70 and a mark of 22.73%. Definitely keep that in mind when thinking about playing him. Here's where I would say, this is a good place to find some of your low price guys. And then obviously I would mark it with some of these numbers over on the right side. Cameron Tringali shows up. It's not bad. I would almost choose anyone over 35%, really. I would have no problem with a lot of these guys, maybe even 34, just to make it easier. So you can see what the low round is. I'm not going to really go over that. Your highest differential. Now, this is where I think if you find someone here with a higher score, these would be showdown slate guys. Denny McCarthy being up here, oh man. The numbers are just so good. 70.45, one of the best scoring averages in the field. McCarthy might be one of my favorite last year one plays, now that I see it. Ted Potter Jr. is up here. Not a very good clip of finding the top 70, or not top 70, of finding rounds under 70. Can go low, but yeah, I don't think that's where I'm going to put any of my stock. Tom Hoagie, not terrible. Will Gordon, I mean, we could make lineups with just these guys. 8,200, 6,900. Pat Perez at 7. That's not terrible. Johnny Vegas is not bad, but, you know, I'm probably steering away from last year's 6s. Denny McCarthy, Tyler Duncan. Anyways, let's look at the percentage of rounds under 70. So we see Wes Bryant up here. He had 11 rounds under 70. That's not a lot. You know, this number here is just determinant on how many rounds of golf they played, basically. So 68%, pretty darn high. This number is very low. Now we actually saw Wesley Bryan not too long ago. He was playing, I think, at the Wyndham. I don't know if he made it in the first. Did he make it in the first week of playoffs? 7,100 Wesley Bryan. No, he just played at the Wyndham, so never mind. Well, it's interesting nonetheless, right? 68.75% is insane. Andy Zhang only played 2 rounds, 50%. So obviously he played probably in one event, and 2 of his rounds were under 70. Maybe it was a par 70, especially when his low round was a 68. So obviously we probably want to avoid someone like Andy Zhang. But here we go. Mark Hubbard, Cameron Tringali, Shane Lowry, Seamus Power, Joel Damon, a favorite of a lot of people, Harold Varner III, Doc Redman. You can make a lineup of most of these guys. Like, what does this look like? Shane Lowry, Seamus Power. Can we even put a Doc Redman in there? That's 41,700. So obviously we need to find someone under $8,300. I mean, Taylor Gooch. There you go. You had a lineup, 49,000, like, of golfers who have good percentages of rounds under 70. It's not terrible, right? So here's what we found out in the course of the video. We want to find golfers who hit a fade. Shane Lowry hits a fade. Like, a lot of things are just checked off for Shane Lowry. Really like Shane Lowry. In the future with these videos, I will include what shot shape they have. I've been making mental notes, not so much mental notes. I've been writing them down, what shot shape all of these golfers play. Shane Lowry hits a fade. Do I know what Seamus Power does? I do not. Joel Damon hits a fade. I believe Harold Varner hits a draw. Doc Redman hits a fade. Like, we already have a bunch of guys up here that are good with a fade. So, yeah, and if you guys know any more information on what shot shape they hit, I would prefer a fade over a draw, but in all reality, I'd prefer a golfer who actually has full control of the golf ball, hits draws and fades when they need to. But yeah, that is going to conclude the scoring average. What I'm going to get into now are my favorite pairings. My favorite pairings are based off of their scoring average. I mean, I looked at their scoring stats just in general and color-coded it based off of that. So one of the first ones off in the morning, Sam Burns, Carlos Ortiz, and Graham Dillette. Now, Graham Dillette has not played enough tee times or enough events to actually have these stats. In fact, the stats that he does have for scoring does not look good. 10% of his rounds under 70. Lowest round was a 68. So it's okay. Who knows? Maybe Burns and Ortiz play off each other. Maybe they feed into Graham Dillette a little bit. Scott Stallings has one of the best scoring averages in the field, but he is not playing with a group that I care too much about. These guys actually have shot low rounds this year or this last year, so that's not terrible. They just don't do it frequently. So I'd be more fearful that one of them blows up and it negatively affects everyone else. Now, it might be possible that Scott Stallings just doesn't care and he just plays, 2 good rounds of golf with these guys in his group and then just moves on to the weekend. But keep that in mind. I do like him. He's red because I don't like anyone else in his group. Next group I like, Will Gordon, Charlie Hoffman, and Eric Van Rooyen. Van Rooyen is a very good golfer, very talented, and can score low. You can see that by his low round of 62. We don't have scoring average stats because, again, the PGA did not provide us with it, but the guys in his group, remember, the average is 71.26. So Charlie Hoffman is actually below the average in this field, the scoring average in this field. But then Will Gordon is several numbers below. Their percentage of rounds under 70, not terrible. Eric Van Rooyen, maybe not so much, but I think this is a group that can pick everyone up. So it's a good moment to include like someone like pairing these guys up however way you want to pair them up. It would work out pretty decent. Hudson Swafford's not a bad play. 37.5% of his rounds are under 70. I said anything over 34 is good. This group, I guess, in its own right, isn't terrible. Yeah, actually, I should color code this too. I'm gonna make it yellow just because I'm not really one way or the other. Actually, I'll make it light green. I'm reserving yellow to boring groups, basically. Snedeker, Furyk, and Spieth couldn't be any more of a boring group to watch. All of them have terrible differentials. They don't score super low, but their scoring average is good. They're all grinders. So really, who knows? Maybe these guys, just continuously support each other and getting pars. And they just keep parring, and then make one birdie here, par, bogey, maybe a birdie, get it back to 1 under, and that's where they're gonna live. It's doable, but we've seen blow-ups from Snedeker and Spieth in the past. Furyk just disappoints at a steady pace nowadays. I don't really so much like the group, but their scoring average is low enough to take consideration. Here's that Pat Perez guy that we were talking about earlier. He's in a solid group with Keegan Bradley and Kevin Streelman. I like their buckets to go along with their scoring average. Everything is kind of panning out to be pretty decent. I would definitely consider each of them, all three. Perez just is really the only guy with a good price discount. Scrolling down, I like this group here of Taylor Gooch, Bud Cauley, and George McNeil. I don't so much care for the George McNeil part, but Gooch and Cauley have some of the lowest scoring averages in a group together. So it's pretty good. And Gooch actually has a really good percentage of his rounds under 70. So definitely worth the consideration for sure. Wyndham Clark, low price guy in a kind of crappy group. I mean, his scoring average isn't the greatest, but that differential and his ability to go low, it makes him an appealing play. But that's all that I really have on Wyndham Clark. I really don't even know what ball shape he hits or what shot shape he has. Here's a good group. Harold Varner III, Harry Higgs, and Robbie Shelton. We already talked about Robbie Shelton and Harold Varner. I haven't really said anything about Harry Higgs. He has that 34% and above. So the group in itself, not terrible. The lowest round Robbie Shelton has had last year was a 62. That fits right in with the rest of this group. He probably just has enough. I mean, he just doesn't have a lot of rounds under 70. But when he's hot, obviously he can get pretty hot. Joel Damon is a guy I like. I don't really so much like the group he's in. So you can see he's with Chase Seifert and JJ Spawn. I don't know. Like JJ Spawn, I should say Chase Seifert actually has a good birdie or round under 70 percentage, but 60, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's kind of steady play in a way. 66 is low round, 71.18 not good, but that percentage of under 70, pretty good. Interesting, to say the least. Chris Baker is a golfer you've probably heard a lot throughout the golf industry being brought up. The only reason I've got him highlighted is he has the potential to go low. His percentage under 70, not very good. His scoring average, it's okay. Next group, Cam Davis is being talked about throughout all of the industry, and rightfully so. $8,900 is a very good price, especially when his scoring average is 70.64. That's pretty good. It's one of the tops in this field. 64, not the lowest round that we've seen. 29 rounds under 70 at a 36% clip. Like, that's pretty good. So it's definitely worth the consideration. At the $8,900 tag, pretty darn good. A guy with better numbers than that, maybe not the amount of rounds under 70 would be Seamus Power. He has a better percentage, not nearly a better scoring average. Yeah, I guess it's just the percentage. 1 stroke worse than Cameron Davis. Might be a discount from Cam Davis. You know, if you wanted to fade him for ownership reasons, you know, maybe you can go down a little bit more. I'm not saying you want to pivot to Seamus Power, but you could, honestly. Maverick McNeely is another golfer. Pretty decent good. That's a good. Those are good. A good combination of words to put together there. But anyways, 70.79 scoring average, 35% of his rounds under 70. Not terrible. Pretty good clip. Differential, not very good. 65 is not a super low round, but hey, if it's consistent, that's actually pretty decent, you know. Especially for $7,300, you could do worse. I don't like that he's a last year 6th though. Unfortunately, I can't. Actually, let me hide the odds. We don't need to be looking at odds. There you go. Here's an interesting group: Mark Hubbard, Tom Hoagie, and Matt Every. Matt Every can go low. Last year, he didn't so much. 65 was his lowest round. His numbers are just putrid. But the other two guys, 70.61 for Tom Hoagie is a pretty good scoring average. This tells me he's probably a little bit more of a volatile golfer. Obviously, if 70.61 is a scoring average, that's good. Differential's pretty high. You know, 62, it will be high because of the 62. Rounds under 70, not very high. And then that percentage is not high at all. So when he does shoot over par, all that tells me is if he's shooting over par to bring his scoring average up, it's not by much. So he might be actually a safe play at $6,900. Just worth consideration. And then Mark Hubbard just scorches golf courses. Like he played really well in 2020. So we'll see how that translates into this tournament. But at 8,100, you could do worse. You could do much worse. Matthew Neesmith, I only have him highlighted because of his 70.58. I have nothing else to say about him. This group here, Cameron Tringali, Doc Redman, who is a favorite of a lot of people this week, and Kyle Stanley. I think this group is really good. Stanley can do good things. It just depends on which Stanley shows up. You know, is this the Stanley of like 2017, 2016? If so, like, yeah, I will play. I would play a lot of Stanley. Not a very good clip of rounds under 70, 71.01. Again, average was 71.26 in this field, so he's better than average. In fact, all of his other two playing partners are also under average. So these guys could play off each other and get hot. Your marquee group: Shane Lowry, Brendan Steele, Phil Mickelson. Very low scoring averages. You know, obviously we have the best here with Shane Lowry. I believe Brendan Steele was like 4th best. Phil Mickelson, Phil's Phil, right? He is going to make a lot of birdies, and that is what matters. That would be the last piece of information I'd like to add to here is how many birdies do they have. But birdies, well, I should say scoring average is fairly high. If he can mitigate that with more birdies, like he's obviously a really good DK play. At 10-6, that's probably a stretch though. 29.69% of his rounds under 70, not the greatest. What I really should do is just add the birdie or better numbers here, and maybe that's what I will do in the future because it would be really good to compare those numbers together. Going down here, Sergio was someone I wanted to point out. I don't really so much like the group that he's in with Tway and Grillo. Tway's just been playing some awful golf in 2020. Grillo is manageable, but not at 9,700. I would never play Grillo at 9,700. 99, Sergio is worth the consideration. Group down here with Bryce Garnett, JB Holmes, and Will McGirt. I really like JB Holmes this week. I think he probably goes under the radar. No one so much likes JB Holmes, just based off of what he's done in the past. I mean, he was the slow guy at the Farmers Insurance Open when Alex Noren should have won it. So I don't suspect a lot of golf or a lot of people playing JB Holmes, but I do like JB Holmes this week. And the rest of Bryce Garnett has fairly decent numbers when it comes to who he is, basically, and his price tag. I think that group could do decent things. Now we're kind of coming down to the final stretch of playing groups. I like this one, Jonathan Vegas, Tim Wilkinson, and Sam Ryder. The surprise here is Wilkinson, 70.94. The lowest round is a 65. Differential is 5.94. Maybe not that many rounds under 70, but not to have that many rounds under 70, that differential and that scoring average, unless he's playing a lot of par 70s, like that's a really good number. And at $6,100, that's not a bad play in all reality. Again, he's paired with Johnny Vegas and Sam Ryder. Ryder I've liked in the past. His numbers don't look that great. Vegas, obviously 62. This guy can go low. Just depends on what Vegas we have. I'm not positive on the group actually, like as a whole, but it's worth consideration. That's why it's yellow. Here's an interesting group. Luke List, Nick Watney, and Ricky Barnes. Why is it interesting? Well, Watney has a fairly low scoring average. Luke List under the field average. Both of them have, all three of these golfers have decent low rounds in 2020. Luke List actually has a pretty good number of rounds under 70, but the percentage, the conversion's not that good. At their price points, it's not terrible to pair, a couple of them up. I mean, my favorite would be Luke List and Nick Watney, but you can do whatever you want. The group underneath them, though, Denny McCarthy, Adam Schenk, and Brian Stewart, is a extremely interesting group. Very affordable players, very good scoring averages, multiple rounds under 70, and the percentage is good. Like I said, we want 34 and above. Each one of them is above 34, so a very good group there. And then some notables down here: Patrick Rogers, Henrik Norlander. Scoring averages are good. I know Rogers is a California guy. It's worth the play. So I see that I'm at 47 minutes, so I'm going to end the video there. Again, I guess what I should have done here, let's do this really quick. Let's just hide all of this, and that way we can put not bogey avoidance. That's silly. If I were to actually do this properly, this is how I would do it. Give me my overall POA, and then come over here to birdie or better. And then we can go by players this way. I really don't care about official world golf ranking. Let's see if this, okay, so we need to hide a couple more. Do we care about points per game? We don't care about value that much. We can hide this as well. Okay, so there we go. We have birdie or better. We have scoring averages up here. So let's do that. Let's go with scoring average. Brendan Steele, good POA stats. Not terrible birdie or better in this field. Obviously, the greener it gets, the better. The darker red it gets, the worst. Will Gordon is popping out. He's a golfer worth considering. Varner, not terrible numbers. Shane Lowry, pretty decent POA numbers. So scoring average. Trying to find the best way to do this. How about this? Looking at everybody that's good on POA. These guys don't have a lot of rounds, I believe, under POA. Or, yeah, with POA information. So although they have good POA stats, I wouldn't really so much look for them. There's Will Gordon. So basically anything that's over 34 is what I also want to look at. So Lowry, Brendan Steele, Keegan Bradley, Jim Furyk, Brandt Snedeker, Will Gordon. Some of those names are gross. I don't know. We'll see how the review goes, actually, for all of this information. For now, I don't really see much correlation. Some of those golfers I didn't care to say, but obviously the stats showed me, told me to tell you those numbers or those names. But anyways, yeah, we're going to end the video there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the review video. All right, bye.